Hi, I'm Kyle Gassett, Director of Troy Public Radio. When severe weather strikes, tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, we're not just a news source, we're a lifeline. In the past year alone, Troy Public Radio has broadcast close to 1,000 weather alerts for our region. Federal funding helps keep our signals strong. To protect local weather coverage and emergency alerts, visit protectmypublicmedia.org. And thanks.
Vicky Sue White and Casey Cole White were not related despite having the same last name. Vicky was 18 years and 1 day older than Casey, and they were no one's idea of a perfectly matched couple. On April 29, 2022, Vicky helped Casey, a convict serving 75 years for a crime spree in 2015, escape. Vicky was a highly respected assistant director of corrections. She'd put in 25 years with the department and was hours away from a comfortable retirement. Her colleagues loved her. Why then would someone who had everything to lose throw it all away? That's the question we're asking on Inside Job, Understanding Vicky White, a true crime podcast from Troy Public Radio. I'm Ann Kenda. Last time on Inside Job, we learned that Vicky White died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound as law enforcement was closing in. It happened in Evansville, Indiana, 11 days and hundreds of miles from where the hunt began at the Lauderdale County, Alabama jail.
Some people may say that, she had the keys to his freedom and he had the keys to her heart.
That's Mark McDaniel, a defense attorney for inmate Casey White. Casey was charged with felony murder in Vicky's death, even though it was ruled a suicide, because he was committing a felony at the time, meaning the escape. The charge ended up being dropped. Outside a courthouse in 2023, right after the charge was dropped, McDaniel said Casey cannot be held solely responsible for what happened.
It's not all on Casey. It's a two-way street, folks. She had the keys to the jail. She's a sweet, kind woman, but like I said before the judge, he didn't have the keys. He was in a cage.
A trial for the murder of 59-year-old Connie Ridgway, a cold case Casey previously confessed to, seemingly to get transferred back to Vicky's jail, never took place. Today, Casey is serving life at the Donaldson Correctional Facility in Bessemer for felony escape and other charges. We're recording this podcast in the summer of 2025, more than 3 years since the incident that captured the nation's attention. Since then, Vicky's story has been told in various versions in pop culture. There have been 2 movies, a documentary, many YouTube videos, and true crime podcasts such as this one. When a relationship between a guard and inmate first starts to go wrong, it often begins with flattery. In Prisoner of Love, streaming on Tubi, a fictional Casey, played by Adam Mayfield, butters up Vicky, telling her that with her blonde hair, she reminds him of pop star Taylor Swift.
Is that all?
Yes, ma'am. Just your tan. It reminds me of sunshine. You're beautiful. That's all.
In Bad Romance, which aired on Lifetime, actor Rossif Sutherland gives Casey some depth.
Let's talk about you and me.
Yeah, what about you and me?
I don't know. You got that special something. Every time you're around, I can't stop looking at you.
I guess the pickings are pretty slim here in prison.
Oh, no, that ain't it. No. If I saw you on the outside, I'd come right up to you.
Well, I bet if you saw what else was on the outside, you wouldn't be saying that.
I was on the outside. Why you always running yourself down like that?
If this is about your commissary, I am not giving you any money. Do you know how many times I go through this in a day? My goodness.
I'm serious. You're a sexy lady. Anybody can't see that damn fool. What? I'll go you one better. You're a good person. Yeah, I can tell. I ain't had too many of them in my life.
Did you hear the compliments? According to Lieutenant Gary Cornelius, they happen way too much in jails and prisons. He says even if the compliments are well intended, they can send the relationship between a guard and inmate down the wrong path.
Compliments, maybe little messages, maybe little notes, little letters, and how friendly you are. One thing I heard a lot in my career is you're not like the other deputies, you care. And I heard that a lot, and I wish I had $1 for every time I heard it. But that's their way of complimenting you and trying to get you to see them as a friend. They're not that bad. Oh, yes, I got in trouble, but I've straightened out. And well, they get out, and then a month or two later, they're coming right back in. So this is how it starts. Very, very slow, very, very subtle. And the whole idea is to get you, the officer or the staff member, to look at them differently. The aim is for you to do what that inmate wants. There's going to be all kinds of ploys and methods for them to try to make that happen.
Cornelius has an impressive background in corrections in Fairfax County, Virginia, and now writes extensively on stress management for officers. Being a guard is a really intense job, but there are some ways to help manage it. He says to keep an emotional barrier up when working with inmates and maintain situational awareness. Cornelius says to remember that some prisoners are going to try to get around procedures every day. They want favors and they want special treatment.
And there are some that I've met that were very cooperative. I got along with them. They obeyed my orders and instructions. They didn't give me any problem at all. And then I had others that were very, very streetwise, and they had that criminal lifestyle, criminal culture. So the officer should always remember where they are and who they are dealing with. Another thing is to remember, too, that you should treat inmates with respect. They are human beings. They are people. No matter what they've done, no matter what their charges, they are human beings. They are people. And I always try to treat them with basic human dignity and respect.
Prison guards are often portrayed in movies and TV shows as brutal, corrupt, prone to playing favorites among inmates, perpetually bored, easily bribed, or any combination of those qualities. In real life, corrections officers often don't get recognized or supported for the important work they do. Clinique Chapman with the Vera Institute studies the effects of mass incarceration in the U.S. She refers to the cycle of harm for both prisoners and the people who work in the prisons, and says an alternative is the rethinking of housing and jobs in corrections.
So Vera's Restoring Promise initiative is a way to mitigate the impact of mass incarceration by creating alternative housing units for young adults age 18 to 25 who are kind of matched with a mentor, an older coach who is over 25 and serving long sentences, as well as specially trained corrections professionals in these housing units together. This alternative approach to young adults and corrections culture contributes to lower incidences of violence in the units, greater job satisfaction for staff, and just a more positive work environment for everyone.
Wasantha Jayawardena, an assistant professor of public health at Southern Illinois University, did one of only a few academic studies on the health effects of working as a prison guard. He says the long hours and rural locations of prisons can make getting help for the physical and psychological challenges that come with being a corrections officer all the harder.
In some places, there aren't many services nearby because prisons are located far away from cities. They cost too much. So to fix this, workplaces need to make getting help easier, private, and I would say judgment-free.
Lieutenant Cornelius used to switch up his assignment if he noticed he was experiencing burnout on the job. Those who knew her said Vicky White used to mention burnout, but in a casual way that did not let on the depth of what she was really feeling. If she mentioned having a new man in her life, she didn't tell even close friends that it was a prisoner. Cornelius recalled other cases around the country where an officer, or sometimes a civilian prison staff member, got too personal or involved with an inmate. It still happens and appears in the news from time to time, even after the case we're talking about now. It may not always end with escape, manhunt, and death, as Vicky White and Casey White's story, but it never goes well.
When an officer starts losing that objectivity, where shortcuts on the job, spending too much time with inmates, and a big one is telling the inmates personal business. And in my classes, I tell attendees, these are officers, some new, some veterans, some have maybe 2 years on, some have a lot of years on. I said, there's 2 words that can keep you safe. And the words are shut up. Do not tell inmates about your personal life, what's going wrong in your personal life, because the inmate, with the manipulative skills that they've learned from the street, they will move in on that.
So at the end of this podcast, we still don't know exactly what Vicky was thinking or feeling in the months leading up to the escape, during her time on the run, or in that last fateful car crash. She helped Casey escape and hide out, but as we've heard, she may have been vulnerable and experiencing her own trauma after many years on the job and her experience with grief. Vicky White is still thought of fondly by some who knew her even from the other side of the cell. Chantel Petty wishes she could still run into Vicky while shopping for clothes in the women's section at Walmart.
We're all human at the end of the day. Yes, she made a terrible mistake, but I honestly believe that Vicky fell in love with Casey. That I have no doubt about. But at the same time, she wasn't thinking very clearly of the outcome or the circumstances that could happen once they escaped.
Petty says Vicky's major mistake was not thinking about what would happen after she let Casey get into her heart and mind and then helped him escape. This has been Inside Job, a true crime podcast from Troy Public Radio. Special thanks to Chantel Petty, Gary Cornelius, Clinique Chapman, Wasantha Jayawardena, and Tom Langhorn. Austin Toy is our producer. Kyle Gassett edits the podcast. Inside Job is dedicated in loving memory to true crime buff Mandy Rose Morrow. She's forever 27 and basically a detective. This has been Inside Job, Understanding Vicky White. I'm your host, Ann Kenda.